No, the retail was the book that I just had to get it out of me. That
Gotcha.
was the cathartic book. Projections, science fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, action, sci-fi. This is really the lane I want to be in, and this is the lane I'm going to be in for the foreseeable future. So,
That's awesome.
trying to take concepts people might be already familiar with and take them in new and interesting and hopefully fun directions.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Is there any kind of like fiction or books that are fictional that you don't want anybody to know you like?
I mean, do I have any guilty pleasures?
There it is. Yep.
I don't have any guilty pleasures because I own all of my pleasures and I don't feel guilty about them. It doesn't matter how nerdy they are. It doesn't matter. I will own them.
Awesome. Welcome everybody to the Snow Globe. I have a very special guest today. We have Mr. Joshua Danker-Dake here, and he wrote a book. Yeah, it's called Projections, and it's an amazing read. It's a real like sci-fi, hit every note of sci-fi. So in honor of that, of course, I had to have a sci-fi background. And we have Josh. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I love your He-Man get up. I see you have a poster of all the characters. What's the green thing behind you?
Behind me, oh, this is a little Castle Grayskull.
Look at that. So cute. And then is that like a starship there?
Got my little Starship Enterprise 20
Hey, look at
questions.
that. You guys, we have a true nerd here. I don't know. Do you take offense to that word?
No, I'm writing science fiction. I own it completely. You kind of have to.
Of course, of course. That's good.
I'm not offended.
Good, good. Yes. Well, fellow nerd here, and I appreciate all the decor. So yeah, let's get into it. So, I mean, first off, you said that on your, I think it was Facebook, that it took you 5 years to write this book. Is that because it took a while to do, came to you too late? What? How? Why did it take that long?
Well, it didn't take me 5 years to write, but I did write it 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Um, I had the idea in 2014, and I was writing it about the time that my previous book, The Retail, came out, and I've been sitting on it for about 5 years, partly because we had the third child, partly because I was serving as president of the local writers club, and partly because I was kind of pursuing alternative avenues of publication. But finally, we're here,
Still here.
and
It
it feels
came.
good.
That's good. Yeah. So before I get into the details about the book, I do want to, for the listeners, to kind of get to know you a little bit.
Sure.
So you have three children.
3 children.
Of course, you're married, and you live in Tulsa.
I live in Tulsa.
Awesome. And then you've been writing for what? Since you can remember, or how long have you been writing professionally?
Professionally, well, I've been writing fiction my whole life, on and off, and I've enjoyed writing and storytelling my whole life. Really, when I was in college was when I decided that I wanted to write fiction, like seriously write fiction. So I've been really banging my head against that wall for about 20 years now, which
Wow.
is pretty depressing when I put it that
No,
way.
it's not. That's awesome. You needed to take your time because it took that time.
I started writing in college. Let's say I started writing in college. I had dabbled before that, but that's when I got serious about it. I wrote 4 novels, which have not been published and will never be published because they're all terrible, and they're hopefully been all records of them have been destroyed. But my first book, The Retail, came out in 2014, and since then I've been really pushing towards projections and the things that will follow from projections.
That's good. Good. So is this kind of like the passion child in a sense, or it's just you had to get this book out of you?
No, The Retail was the book that I just had to get it out of me. That was
Gotcha.
the cathartic book. Projections science fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, action, sci-fi. This is really the lane I want to be in, and this is the lane I'm going to be in for the foreseeable future. So if people like projections, then they will like, or I hope they will like, most of what I'm putting out henceforth. So
Dope, dope. I'm sure they will. It's an incredible book. So one of the things I wanted to ask, because I know you're an academic writer, so you pretty much write for a living every day, I
I
guess.
edit. I edit for a living.
Sorry, edit for a living. I'm sorry. So being an editor, being immersed in other people's work. I mean, these are academic, what scripts, papers, novels. I don't know if you can have an academic novel. It
You
shows you how
can't,
much I know.
but I've edited I have edited novels, and I've
Have you?
edited all kinds of things,
Sweet.
really all over the place. If it exists, I've probably edited it from not just research papers, but also fiction, comic books,
Wow.
nonfiction books,
Okay.
instruction manuals,
Instruction manual.
whatever you got, I can edit it.
That's awesome. So does that kind of like exhaust you to the point where you have to make something creative your own? Does it trigger or fuel you to like go for it and do your own thing, or
It almost feels like a completely different thing.
really?
And not because editing is so different from writing, because really, as a writer and an editor, I would say that writing and editing are on the same spectrum,
Okay.
right? Because when you're writing, you're thinking about what you're doing, you're changing things. That's editing. You're editing as you go. And everybody does that, whether or not they are an editor.
Okay.
But the difference is the ownership of what I'm working on. So
Gotcha.
if it's my work, it feels much different to be working on it than to be working on somebody else's
Yeah. Okay, cool.
work.
So it feels like two different lanes. Okay, cool.
It does, and that's good. That's good for me to be able to not drain out of that creative tank
Right,
to
right.
some level when I want to, you know, I've been editing all day and now the kids are in bed and now it's time to create something.
And there's still something there. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think I feel the opposite with my line of work just because I don't want to edit anything else, but that's just me. Then
I
also,
understand that.
what's that?
I understand.
Yeah, it's hard to get motivated, I think. But so when you're writing, you say after the kids go to bed, do you like,
Mostly you.
yeah, so does it like you have to create like a space to write? How do you get into that writing mode?
I have to be very purposeful and very deliberate about getting into that mode. It does not come naturally at all. It's even less natural now that I'm constantly on the internet. Um,
We all
but you almost have to remind yourself, this is what you want to be doing, right? This is this you want to be doing this. You want to be writing,
right.
right? So I'm always trying to make choices that tomorrow me will be happy about,
Hmm.
and tomorrow me is always happy when I write. So the kids are in bed, the responsibilities are done, and I can just come in my office and not have to worry about doing anything else and just kind of focus. And that's really the best focus I get during the day.
Wow, that's good. That's nice. So that's how you get into your space. That's nice. So one thing also, okay, so let's get into the book. Let's get into the book a little bit. Talk to me, for the listeners, in your own words, describe the gist of the story or the plot, just the highlights, not too many details, highlights.
So Projections is sort of a cyberpunk buddy cop action thriller. Um, it's a murder mystery, and it's also gets into some holographic technology. Kind of the idea behind it is, anybody who's familiar with Star Trek is familiar with the holodeck, right? A room you can walk into, and anything you can imagine, it's there. Anything you want, it's there. So my idea was to kind of take this technology back to how it must have evolved, and to take it off of, a starship full of great people and to put it in a city full of, killers and thieves and horrible people, regular people.
Regular people. That's amazing. Cool. So was it just based off Star Trek technology kind of fueled this idea? Or did you always have this in your head like, oh yeah, it's got to be a murder, thriller technology fueled?
Well, I didn't, it's not a rip-off of Star Trek, but it's practically impossible to do, holograms in science fiction without at least some kind of nod
Right.
towards Star Trek. So I recognize that nod. I'm not pretending that I'm reinventing the wheel or
Right.
I'm not Isaac Asimov, right? That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to take concepts people might be already familiar with and take them in new and interesting and hopefully fun directions.
Are any of the imaginative sci-fi elements in this story, specifically like worlds and companies and stuff, are any of those based off any real life things in your own life?
I'm going to say no. No, it's not. This is not something that's really based on real life. I think if I had to sit down and really dig through it, there are dozens and dozens of influences, from not only the books I've read, the movies I've watched, the video games I've played,
Mm-hmm.
and then just try to put my own take on it.
Nice, sweet. So you're a huge fan of fiction, obviously.
Yes.
Like it to want to work in it, right? What is there any kind of like fiction or books that are fictional that you don't want anybody to know you like?
You mean, do I have any guilty pleasures?
There it is. Yep.
I don't have any guilty pleasures because I own all of my pleasures and I don't feel guilty about them. It doesn't matter how nerdy they are. It doesn't matter. I will own them.
Awesome.
That said, I don't think there's anything too outrageous or trashy that would be of excitement to you to find out that I was into. I mean, I read a lot of comic books. I'm almost 40. I read a lot of comic books. I read a lot of science fiction.
Yes.
I don't feel guilty about any of it.
Is there any that you just really love?
I do. Like a lot of the times, the world is a horrible place, and reality is a horrible place, and sometimes you just want to go somewhere else.
I gotcha. Yeah, for sure. I can relate. Is there anything you're reading currently that you just were like, oh, this is a good read? Yeah.
What I've been reading lately has actually been a bunch of not really that exciting marketing types of books, trying to learn how Amazon works.
Mm-hmm.
Get
educated.
This is the back end, the business end of my job that I didn't like. This is not the glamorous side. But I also really like to read nonfiction about my particular interests, which are not science fiction related, and I do read a lot of those lately. And in fact, I find that I gravitate towards nonfiction more when I'm actually writing.
Okay.
Because I like to write it while I'm reading it. I don't know. I can't really explain why. It's not like I start ripping off of stuff, but it's just
But you want to keep.
I like to be a little bit compartmentalized.
So when you're writing, does it take you a long time, or do you have to find moments where you just sit down, get it done? How long does it take you to write a book typically?
I feel like I'm a very slow writer.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I've always been a slow writer, and I'm always looking for ways to speed that up. So depending on what all is going on in my life, it takes anywhere between 6 to 12 months to get a book done from idea to now it's ready to be printed, and read. So that feels like a really long time to me, and I'm trying to get it to where I can do it in 6 months. I don't know that I could do a book every 6 months because I would probably die. But I'm working towards that.
Okay, awesome. Working towards it. That's good. So do you recall writing in your youth at all?
I do recall writing in my youth.
What's your earliest memory of writing?
My earliest memory of writing, I was in third grade. We had a short story assignment. We had to write a short story with pictures about whatever we wanted. And I wrote a short story. It was about some ninjas because this was the early 90s. And so everything was ninjas, right?
Gotcha.
Um, and some other kid asked me what I was writing. And then it turned out that he also had written a story about ninjas. And then the teacher took me aside and said, don't tell the other kids what you're working on. Uh, So because they just will rip you off. So I guess I don't know.
That's a brutal business.
But and then we recently moved to to a new house, and as I was going through some files, I found what appeared to be a short story I wrote when I was about 4,
Hmm.
and it was on about 5 post-it notes that were all stapled together, and it was about a dinosaur that took a walk, and that was basically the whole plot.
Perfect. Wow. So, would you ever want to see projections made into a feature film or a television series? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, yes. I mean, I don't really know how to be more emphatic than yes. But I actually try to write cinematically.
Really?
I'm not going to go out and say that, oh, I wrote this book and it's basically an action movie, but I do try to think cinematically when I'm doing action scenes, and well, really when I'm doing any scene, but when I'm doing action scenes, especially 80s sort of movie sensibilities, 80s action movies, sometimes they say that, that less is more, but, quite often more is more. And
Right. For
that's
sure.
what people want. And so I'm always after that. So a movie would be great. A TV show would be great.
Yeah, I often felt that this could be a great TV series. Just the punchlines, the moments, I particularly enjoy the kind of like smart ass language, just because it just works for me.
I have fun writing, and I have fun writing that. And, the smart ass characters they're the most fun to write. They just
Right.
always.
Yeah, I appreciate like good situations and witty commentary. So
It's so much easier to tell a story when you have a character there who can say anything that needs to be said.
right,
So
right, for sure.
it's kind of an easy mode in a way, but it's fun.
Yeah. Which brings me to my next question. Are you and Yuha kind of, do you find yourself like you guys have the same synergy? Do you see yourself in that character in particular?
I don't know. Do you see me in that character?
I don't know. I asked because the times we've had like family gatherings or whatever, and the moments that character said a few things, I was like, kind of reminds me of Josh.
I do get that sometimes from people who know me,
Mhm,
but not just for one character. Usually it's you're this character and this part of you is that character.
mhm.
I will say, as far as projections, as far as the character of Yuha, he does have some qualities that I aspire to. He is a smart ass. I don't aspire to be a smart ass. That just, you know, that kind of comes naturally. But he's in control of his emotions. He doesn't let stuff get to him, or if it does get to him, he doesn't show it.
Right.
And so I really admire that and kind of aspire to that. And
Cool.
so I do. He does have some messages in the book and lessons that he's trying to get across that I am trying to teach myself.
Really? Oh, love it. Yeah. Very deep. I like that he has some depth to him too. Um so back to your writing process, just because I'm always very curious about these types of things, and the premise of the podcast is really to get to know the artists and their artistic process. Um did you find yourself did, did you find yourself kind of killing your babies, like just striking pages of stuff, or do you keep most of your stories when you're developing it?
Okay, so as a professional editor, this is something I have a lot of familiarity with. Killing your babies, killing your darlings, going back and cutting out something you really liked because it was better for the story. That's what you're talking about, right?
Exactly.
So that is not something I do, but it's not because I'm great. It's because that I've suffered through this for 20 years, and I've had to make my process better.
Got it. Got it.
So my 4 manuscripts that I've got tucked away somewhere that hopefully will never see the light of day. A lot of the problem with those is the plot. I didn't outline. I just kind of made it up as I went along,
Mm-hmm.
and you get some saggy parts and some parts that don't work, and it just isn't always that satisfying. And it works for some people. I'm not saying it's always a horrible process, but it does not work for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have become a meticulous planner and outliner, and I'm trying to get it right before I've even started writing it. Right. So for the sequel to Projections, which I hope will be out early next year,
Mm-hmm.
I have got a 30,000 word outline.
Wow.
Okay. So did that take me like 2 months to put together? Yes. But now I don't have to really worry about going back and killing my babies because.
You put in the work, right?
Right. It's more like, if it's good birth control, you don't have to kill the babies because they're not there in the first place.
Love it.
That's a horrible metaphor, and I'm sorry.
It's a great metaphor, actually. I got it as soon as you said it.
But that is always something I'm thinking about on the front end.
Okay.
Right, because it's on the front end, you're not as invested. It's easier to make those calls.
Right.
Then I wrote this and I agonized over it. Now it's there, and now I got to take it out. Let's kill it before it grows. Let's pull the weeds early.
So yeah, it makes sense to me. I totally agree. I think that's what gives you speed, and you don't have to suffer through the thought, like you said.
And I honestly, the outlining has sped up my process quite a bit too. Because before, if you're trying to create and edit at the same time, which is basically what I was doing, is you're trying to think of what you want to put in the story and then get it just perfect, and it's just you're agonizing over every sentence.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's been much better to split these apart.
Yeah, I feel like I might try that method. I have my own little passion projects, but they're usually just like comedic short stories in my head. Nobody else thinks they're funny except me.
Well, you are writing first and foremost for yourself. If you don't like it,
That's true.
how's anybody else gonna like it? Right?
That is true. That's true. Yeah. So for anybody who purchases the book and reads the book, what do you hope experience-wise that they'll get from reading the Projections book and hopefully the sequel?
So number one, and really more than anything else, is I want it to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I said, it's not Asimov. It's not Arthur C. Clarke. It's fun. It's an action movie in a book. I said I wasn't going to say that, but I said it. So
You said it, now it's going to happen.
I try to craft interesting characters, well-developed characters, and if you have interesting characters and they're doing interesting things, then that'll take you most of the way you need to go. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Right. And so the overall goal is that people finish the book and think, well, that was exciting and fun, and a fresh and refreshing break from the ongoing horror that is day-to-day existence. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
Good. Yes. Well, I believe people will certainly feel that way. I did, because I was the first. I wouldn't say I was the first, but I needed to buy it right away when I saw it was out. So if anybody would like to buy the book, you can buy the book on Amazon. It comes both in Kindle and on paperback, correct?
Yes.
You can visit his website at Danker-Dake.com. That's DANKERDAKE.com. Do you have any social media, by the way?
I do. You can link to all my social media from my website. It's kind of my headquarters for everything. But I am on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Goodreads, and for reasons I am not yet fully cognizant of, I am also on Instagram.
Sweet. Follow Josh as he's developing the sequel and any other wonderful novel he comes up with. Please follow him on Instagram at Joshua Danker-Dake or on Facebook and Twitter at Josh Danker-Dake.
No hyphens.
Right on. There we are. Perfect. Also, if you guys are interested in finding any more information about Joshua and his He-Man collection. Please visit the Snow Globe podcast with some updates and photos from our interview. Thank you so much, Joshua, for participating and for letting me probe at your life.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, wonderful. All right, guys, till next time. Remember, every other Friday. Bye.